All right, I'm pretty excited about the Thunderbolts kits, which has 3 new characters, and then Taskmaster and Ghost, who did not really get reworks. They just got stat boosts. Now, I do think Thunderbolts are going to be good in raids, of course, but I think they're also going to be pretty good outside of their primary lane in game mode. More importantly than that, they tie to QUASAR, specifically one of the required teams. They said there's going to be 3 required teams in getting the boosted stats. Well, we got to read exactly how it reads because it's a little different than I thought. And then also the strike spot, a lot of people missed this, mentioned monthly scourges. So let's get into how they tie in to the QUASAR event first, and then we'll listen to the strike spot on what was said about 10 days ago. A storm is coming. They're not here to be liked. They're here to get the job done. The Thunderbolts, ex-con mercs, a walking weapon, and a shadowy puppet master have all assembled to bust skills in bio raids. So that's going to be their primary thing. They're the first team of the Age of Annihilus Chapter 1, and one of the 3 essential squads you'll need to power up the Chapter 1 legendary character QUASAR. So, what we know so far is that there's going to be a quarterly system, and throughout the quarter, one would expect to get QUASAR to 7 yellow through normal gameplay. Then there's going to be an additional ways to boost up the team. Red stars. There's also 3 awakened abilities on QUASAR, because the way QUASAR works is that, yeah, there's exposed. Looks like there's going to be some value in exposed team, but QUASAR is mostly a plug and play I win button in Alliance War if you have the awakened abilities. We don't know how we're going to get the awakened abilities, but I think that the strike spot kind of hinted at red stars and scourges and actually mentioned them being monthly rather than just one scourge. So let's listen to what RJ said, and this was about 10 days ago.
Same thing with kind of what we're thinking about doing with the red stars is very similar to the scourges that we've run in the past, but those being the primary way that you're going to earn red stars for these legendary characters. So think of maybe in month 1 of chapter 1, you're earning some amount of the red stars. And then in month 2, we're running another scourge, and you're going to probably power them up some more. And then by month 3, you're running a scourge, the last scourge of that chapter, and then you could fully power up that legendary character. So based off of the player's engagement.
So it's mentioning that there's going to be potentially 3 scourges. He used some language like possibly, so it wasn't like an exact thing. And the way that I'm interpreting this, or assuming or projecting or speculating on, is that this will be the first team. The first team will work on the first scourge, and there will be some red stars awarded. What I'm also hoping is that there's going to be some sort of system to give out the awakened abilities, because I think it would be kind of bad, weird, not fun if it was just tied to must buy. I would hope that maybe there would be on the leaderboard, maybe like top 500 players or something, or top 10,000 players get an awakened ability. And what I don't know is if there are going to be 3 identical scourges, or if each scourge is going to be different, or if the first scourge is tied to this team and then they just change the next one up a little bit and having different rewards, and it uses the next team and so on. That remains to be seen on how that'll be play out. But 7 yellow QUASAR through normal gameplay, red stars coming in some way over a period of 3 scourges on a monthly event through the scourge system, 3 events. The first team that is required, the 3 essential squads, you'll need to power up this character. Makes sense? So this team's important. I think this team's actually pretty good overall. We're going to skip over what they're talking about, but this was all based off of community polls. Let's read about Victoria Hand, who's the first character we're going to go over. Victoria has many tricks up her sleeve, but her charge mechanic makes Thunderbolts especially dangerous with heals and ability energy. In raids, while charged, if an enemy attacks Victoria Hand or a Thunderbolt ally, she generates 1 ability energy for 2 random Thunderbolt allies. When Victoria is charged, she or a Thunderbolt ally drops below 75, 50, or 25%. She heals that character. There's some other stuff that make her more interesting than that. It's kind of interesting. Like the parts that I thought were interesting on these characters are not mentioned in their little blurb here. Enemies will see singing a different tune with Songbird around. Not only does she provide important boosts to crit chance and crit damage in raids, provides a big opening turn. Thunderbolt allies can't gain ability block or trauma before Songbird takes a turn. That's pretty cool. Her ultimate flips all negative effects, and her special ability weakens enemies even if they possess safeguard. And she can lower turn meter, and she's very fast. Okay. Hyperion Taunt Specialist. Hyperion is a solar charged living wall, and he stands before his team to take the brunt of the enemy's damage. He can taunt often. If he takes too much damage, he can patch himself up. Taunt early and often with his low cost special ability taunt. So 3 turns. Reduce the duration of taunt on primary and adjacent targets. It doesn't say that but it does later in the kit with his special. So she can do lower down the defense up. She can get rid of defense up, and then he can get rid of taunt. I think that's going to be very useful against pre-taunting tanks that have safeguard, for example, like Gladiator, right? So I think that's very good. When dropping below 50% health for the first time, Hyperion clears all negative effects on himself and heals himself. Taskmaster and Ghost, they're just getting stat boosts, and they're having the Taskmaster tag to their kit. They also have some other things. Removed on spawn offense because his damage stat was raised. Remove the damage bonus he gave to Underworld Mercenary Villains. We've added these values directly to the older character base stats. Removed his bonus damage against skill enemies, and instead of make sure his base damage was solid in all combat. So I can get into it, but they're really just minor things. The kits largely remain the same. Victoria Hand, she's going to be going last. So we're going to come back to her. We're going to start with the character that goes first because I think it matters the order of operation on how things will potentially work out. Hero, Global, Bio, Blaster, Thunderbolt. So we're going to get some of these characters and be mindful of the ones that Bio. They all have Bio, but some of these are now going to have dual tags. Let's go all the way down to the passive. On turn, apply 2 deflect up to a maximum of 3 to self and all Thunderbolt allies. If this character has 4 or more Thunderbolt allies, this character and all Thunderbolt allies cannot gain ability block or trauma until this character takes a turn. Now, she's 132, so she's going to be going first and early in most matches. Gain 50% crit chance in raids, gain crit damage. Thunderbolt allies gain crit chance and crit damage. Thunderbolt allies gain a lot of focus. So this kind of suggests that Raider will be good. Then, this is what we like a lot. Ultimate, Vicious Area, energy cost 5/5, attack all enemies for damage, flip all positive effects into negative effects, and apply offense down for 2 turns. If this character has 4 or more Thunderbolt allies, apply trauma for 2 turns on all enemies. Now, this is an ability that was reserved for very important characters, and I feel like this is the power creep in the game for kits. I feel like it is going to be more common to have safeguard. It feels like safeguard's like everywhere already, but applying trauma is going to be more common. And then the tippity top teams will have reduced duration of negative effects and positive effects, which is found on some of these kits. In raids, reduce speed bar for all enemies and with any positive effects, apply immunity to self, and all Thunderbolt allies cannot be dodged. So here is the first ability that kind of makes me feel like they're going to be a team useful in multiple game modes. Energy cost 5/5, clear barrier from all enemies, attack primary and adjacent targets for damage, reduce speed bar by 20%. Now she's fast, right? 132. This is going to pop off, reduce speed bar. More interestingly to me is right here. If this character has 2 more Thunderbolt allies, reduce the duration of defense up by 2 for primary adjacent targets. So this is going to sidestep safeguard, right? Apply defense down for 2 turns to primary adjacent targets. In raids, and I feel like these raid abilities are nice, but, you know, like I said, raid bonuses are raid bonuses as far as I'm concerned. Apply defense up for 2 turns, safeguard for 2 turns, and speed up for 2 turns, and self and all Thunderbolt allies. Attack gains extra focus, cannot be blocked or dodged. Basic is pretty basic attack. Primary target for damage and clear 2 positive effects, clear 2 negative effects for self. This does lend to Striker, but she goes early in the match because she's 132, plus her passive benefits having crits. So I think Raider will be the way to go on Sogberg. Now, we're going to go to Hyperion, because Hyperion is going to be the second one to go at 123. He is an Eternal. So what we have Cersei Icarus, and then OG Thanos way back in the day had Eternal Tag. It was removed. Ultimus in the comics was an Eternal, but he's never had the Eternal Tag. Hyperion has an Eternal Tag. Now, there's not a lot of call out to Eternals in the Cersei and Icarus kits. It mostly is towards each other. 123. Let's go down to his passive. On spawn, apply defense up for 2 turns and self and all allies. Apply safeguard to 2 turns to self and all Thunderbolt allies. That is super powerful. Safeguard defense up right out of the spawn. I think that's great. Now, safeguard, there are 2 characters in the game that can prevent that currently on spawn. That would be like Apocalypse and Ares, but still very important. I do feel like this is more of a standard thing, and reducing durations is kind of the new cool. First time this character drops below 50% health, clear all negative effects on self, heal self for 40% of this character's max health, reduce the duration of taunt on this character by 2, which is interesting way of doing instead of just clearing it. And look at this. This is in all game modes. If this character has 4 or more Thunderbolt allies, enemies cannot gain counter. The first time this character gets attacked, fill speed bar for self and all Thunderbolt allies by 30. I think that's fantastic. I really think that's fantastic. You know, she is 132, he's 123. You know, when he gets hit, speed bar for everyone. I love this. I absolutely love this. We're going to go to the ultimate Solar Rush 5/5. Attack all enemies for damage. Apply defense up for 2 turns and bleed for 2 turns. Reduce the speed bar of primary targets by 30%. Gain 2 counters and safeguard for 2 turns. That's fantastic. Now, raids, like I said, this is pretty much like interesting, but I feel like raid bonuses are just like, it's whatever we're going to get. They're going to build the defensive teams, the player, the PvE teams to suit this team so that other teams don't work. So I don't really care about raid bonuses that much. This character has 4 more Thunderbolts allies, steal up to 3 billion energy from every enemy, gain immunity for 2 turns, apply counter to themselves and all Thunderbolt allies. Now, attack cannot miss, and in raids cannot be dodged. Now, this is the one that's interesting. 3/3, attack primary target for damage, apply disrupted, which is great. This character has 2 or more Thunderbolt allies, reduce the duration of taunt on primary and adjacent targets by 2. So this is going to remove the taunt even if they have safeguard. Fantastic. He gets taunt, and then in raids, apply 2 counter offense up for 2 turns, immunity for 2 turns to self and all Thunderbolt allies. Attack gains extra focus and cannot be blocked or dodged. Now, Taskmaster's 120, and he'll go after. Taskmaster will go over the kit, largely the same. Not going to get the crazy turn meter like he does with Underworld for war, but he is going to do blinds and all kinds of silly things as well. Next to act is Victoria Hand. So we're going to go over her kit. Here is her passive. On spawn, bury yourself and all Thunderbolt and Shield allies for 30% of this character's max health. And that is kind of like the max barrier by default. Is 30% of max health right there. Gain 2 charge up to a maximum of 5 in raids. Gain 5 charge up to a maximum of 5 in raids. If this character has 4 more Thunderbolt allies, generate 4 ability energy for self and all Thunderbolt allies. So that makes it so that Sim works better, because without this, you know, like when you manually play raids, you start saving your ability energy towards the end of the node. This kind of eliminates the need to do that and makes it much more simmable. In raids on turn, gain charge up to maximum 5 while charged. When an enemy attacks this character or Thunderbolt ally, generate 1 ability energy for random Thunderbolt allies or self that were not at full ability energy at the start of the current turn. The first time this character or any Thunderbolt Shield ally gains stun, clear stun from self and all Thunderbolt and Shield allies. So there's a couple of things that are pretty cool about these kits so far. One is, you know, until Songbird takes a turn, you know, no ability block. When the first time They get stunned, clear stun for himself and all Thunderbolt and Shield allies. Okay. The first time that Hyperion gets hit, they gain speed bar. I think these are great mechanics that are not tied to raid. I think this is going to be pretty good. It seems good. They're already saying that they're going to be usable in Alliance War. We'll have to see if they're usable in Crucible. When this character or a Thunderbolt or Shield ally drops below the following thresholds, the character has 4 more Thunderbolt allies, reduce the duration of heal block by 2 on that character. So this reduce the duration of heal block is sidestepping trauma, right? This is the superior version of Claire. This gets around things. So this is the new meta, is no longer safeguard and trauma, but rather the mechanics that say reduce the duration on that character. Heal the character by 25% of the character's max health and lose charge. This is not tied to raids. I think this is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Ultimate Data Breach, 5/5. Attack primary adjacent targets for piercing, apply trauma, ability block, and heal block. So again, trauma on the ultimate. That's fantastic. Generate ability energy for self and all Thunderbolt and Shield allies. There are all negative effects for self and all Thunderbolt and Shield allies, not tied to raids. Clear 2 negative effects on all other allies. Heal self and all Thunderbolt and Shield allies for 25% of this character's max health. Heal all other allies for 10% of this character's max health. In raids, gain charge up to maximum 5. This attack gains extra focus, unavoidable, and cannot be blocked. So, I'm going to keep reading the kits. What's really interesting about this is I thought this game was going in this really terrible place where we saw Starjammers and Vigilante look to be very narrow, focused, single lane, kind of bad out of their lane. Actually, maybe even bad in their own lane. And, they had to effectively, boost these teams. They boost Vigilante once, they boost Starjammers twice. They had to modify the Crucible rooms just to make Starjammers more viable, effectively being like a third rework. And then I said, are they just gonna make this game more prescriptive? This team doesn't feel that way. Feels like this team is gonna be useful in many places. And then when I read the QUASAR kit, I thought, oh, this guy could be useful in many places. So I don't know. I don't know why, what they were thinking or what they were going to do with the Vigilante and the Starjammer team, but I do welcome this Thunderbolt because on paper, this looks quite a bit better than what I thought. Generate 1 ability energy. So we read all this, right? This is fantastic. I think this is great. Let's go to this special. 3/5, attack primary adjacent targets for piercing, apply to vulnerable, apply to regeneration of self and all allies, gain more charge, extra focus and cannot mix. And then the basic is piercing, 2 bleeds, gain charge, maximum 5. Call a random controller ally to the primary target. So both Ghost and Taskmasters are controllers. And that's pretty much it. I will just go down here and take a look at what's going to happen with Ghost and Taskmaster. They boost the stats crazy. Look at that. 600, 500, 400, 300, 400. And then they pretty much just add, some bleeds for every Thunderbolt ally, a maximum of 4 extra focus. Basically, they're just adding the Thunderbolt tag to the ultimate. And then we got Taskmaster, same type of situation where they add the Thunderbolt tag. And then on the ultimate, they made the Thunderbolt tag. And, it's nothing. It really is. The characters are going to feel largely the same with just a lot of extra stats. All right, what do you think about all this? I do think the game is heading, or was heading, in a weird direction, not only with overpowered, but prescriptive teams and things like that. So this is a bit welcoming, and I'm a tad confused. I'm a little bit tad confused. Anyways, bye for now.